I went camping with a few friends a couple of years ago. I was 33, and I really needed a break from my job as a data analyst. The campsite was nestled deep in the forest, surrounded by tall pine trees. There was a lake nearby that I remembered from my college days. It felt comforting, like a place where I could finally escape the stress. When we arrived, I set up my tent near the water. The sun was setting, turning the sky a soft orange. I built a campfire and soon gathered around it with my friends. As we talked and laughed, I noticed strange cracking sounds in the distance. I brushed it off, telling myself it was probably just wildlife. I looked at the trees, thinking about all the good times I'd had there before. The first night passed with a strange sense of unease. I felt the noise pulling at my attention. It wasn't just an animal. It felt almost deliberate. Still, I kept my mouth shut. I didn't want to spoil the fun. As the days went by, the sounds persisted. They turned into eerie echoes, making me question what was out there in the dark. By the second night, things started to get really odd. We were out by the fire, sharing stories, when I saw movement between the trees. It was quick and shadowy. I squinted, but I couldn't make out any details. I wondered if it was just my imagination or if my friends had noticed as well. But they seemed oblivious, laughing loudly, their voices mingling with that strange laughter I could hear in the distance. The next morning, we woke to find symbols scratched into the dirt around our campsite. They looked like crude drawings, but I didn't understand what they meant. My friends thought it was a prank. I felt a chill run down my spine. I wanted to tell them how strange everything felt, but I didn't want to sound paranoid. The fun atmosphere faded. I kept seeing figures moving between the trees, always just out of sight. I felt like I was being watched. My friends continued to joke around, but I couldn't shake my unease. The laughter that came from the trees only seemed to grow louder. I found myself glancing over my shoulder more often, expecting something to jump out. When we finally returned home, I thought I could shake it off. But I couldn't. Every night, I felt the same uneasy feeling creeping in. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering about those shadows in the woods. Was it all in my mind? I felt jumpy, like I was still out there, staring into the dark. One night, I got up to grab water. I walked to the kitchen, and I swore I heard a whisper coming from outside. I froze, straining to listen. I turned around. There was nothing there, but I could feel eyes on me. The next few days were restless. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. It followed me into work. I struggled to focus, my mind wandering to the woods every time I glanced out the window. Every dark corner of my department felt like it held a lurking presence. One evening, tired of feeling on edge, I pulled out my phone. Maybe some research would help. I searched online for local legends about the forest. A few clicks and a scrolling screen later, I read about stories of missing campers and strange occurrences. They said the forest had a spirit, a protector that would reveal itself at dusk. It all sounded absurd, but it made the hair on my neck stand on end. I dismissed it as folklore. Yet, the unease wouldn't budge. The next night, I decided to revisit that lake. I convinced myself that reliving the good memories might help. I drove there alone, my heartbeat quickening as the familiar pine trees loomed. As I approached the campsite, the memories felt sharp and painful. The laughter from my friends echoed, mixing with a metallic stillness. Just as the sun dipped beneath the horizon, an uneasy fog rolled in. I reached the lake and sat on the shore, trying to reclaim that solace. But all I found was silence and the cool water reflecting the pale moon. I leaned back, letting my eyes drift to the tree-line. That's when I saw it. A shadow darted between the trees. I stood up, heart racing. "Hello?" I called out, my voice shaky. There was no response, only the wind whispering through the branches. I felt drawn to investigate, so I stepped further away from the lake. The shadows shifted again, just beyond the reach of the moonlight that I started walking toward the sounds, my curiosity eclipsing my fear. As I neared the edge of the trees, I noticed something glinting in the dark. I crouched down, and my stomach twisted when I saw it was a rusted pocket knife, our initials etched onto the handle. I felt a rush of confusion. I remembered bringing this knife to the campsite. But how had it ended up here, far from where I'd dropped it? Panic set in. I began to retreat when a crack sounded from the bushes behind me. My instinct screamed to run, but I couldn't tear my eyes away from the spot. I squinted, heart hammering in my chest, the air going electric around me, then I saw a figure, a shape emerging from the trees. It stood still, dark against the backdrop of the forest, staring straight at me. I could barely breathe. Who was it? What did they want? The shadows twisted around me, and in that moment of stillness, a voice washed over me, echoing like a haunting song. I didn't wait for clarity. I sprinted back to my car, fumbling with my keys. The laughter from that night by the fire flooded my mind, mingling with a fear I couldn't ignore. Something was out there, and it was not finished with me yet. It felt like a warning. A promise of more to come. As I sped away, I realized the unease was no longer in my mind. It was real. Something was following me, and it wasn't going to let me go. The next day, I couldn't concentrate at all. At work, my coworkers noticed. They asked if I was okay, but I just nodded, forcing a smile. I kept replaying the events of the night before. The figure in the woods, the rusted knife. The voice. It all felt too surreal. When I got home, I couldn't shake the worry that something would happen. I finally decided to call my old friends. They needed to know what had happened, I couldn't keep this to myself. I dialed Mike first, the one who had joined me on that camping trip. After a few rings, he picked up. "Hey, is everything alright?" he asked, sounding concerned. "I don't know, Mike," I replied, my voice shaky. "I went to the lake last night, and I found something." "What did you find?" he asked. "It was a knife. Our initials were on it. I thought I lost it there, but it was way deeper in the woods." There was silence on the other end. "You didn't go alone, did you?" "No, but I saw something. A figure. It was just staring at me." "Maybe it was just an animal," he suggested, but his voice lacked conviction. "Maybe," I muttered, not believing it. I could hear the concern in his voice, and it only made me feel worse. I hung up, torn between wanting to talk more and the fear that I'd scare my friends. As darkness descended again, the unease crept back, filling the space around me. I glanced out the window. The trees outside looked more menacing. I tried to distract myself with a movie, but it played in the background while my mind drifted to that lake and the haunting voice. Just past midnight, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Sarah, another friend from the camping trip. "Hey, did you hear about Mike? He hasn't replied to my texts." Panic snaked in my stomach. I hadn't thought much about Mike after our call. What if he was in trouble? Before I could think too hard, I grabbed my jacket and headed out. Driving quick, I couldn't shake the notion that I was being pulled to the forest again, a moth to a flame. I reached the campsite, the familiar path swallowed by darkness. Part of me wanted to scream for Mike, but I felt it was futile. I was alone now, the lake glimmered under the moonlight, a silver eye watching me. I stepped out of my car, every instinct telling me to turn back. But I was drawn to that spot where I had found the knife. As I stepped toward the tree lean, I heard rustling behind me. I spun around, but it was only the wind. The air grew heavy, thick with anticipation. I was about to tell myself to leave when I caught a flash of movement. A shadow darted behind a tree. "Mike?" I called out. No answer. Then, the voice returned. This time it felt less like a song and more like whispering. The sound was all around me, wrapping around my thoughts. My heart raced as I took a step back, but it felt like the ground was shifting under me. Suddenly, the whisper stopped, leaving only silence. I turned to run, but there was something blocking my way. I froze, realizing I wasn't alone. Behind me stood the figure from the night before. I stood there, frozen in place. The figure was shrouded in shadow, but I could make out the outline of its body. It felt wrong, unnatural. I thought about running, but my legs felt like they were stuck in cement. "Who are you?" I forced the words out, my voice trembling. The figure didn't move, didn't speak. It just watched me. I could feel its gaze burning into my skin, sending chills down my spine. Panic surged through me, and I took a cautious step back. That's when I saw its hand, a faint glint of metal catching the moonlight. The knife instinct kicked in. I turned and sprinted towards my car. I could hear the sound of footsteps echoing behind me, mirroring my pace. My heart hammered in my chest as I darted through the trees, branch tips clawing at my arms. I barely reached my car when I fumbled with the keys, the panic clouding my thoughts. Finally, the door clicked open, and I dove inside, slamming it shut behind me. I quickly locked the doors and glanced out the window, breathless. In that moment, everything was still. My eyes scanned the tree line. I half expected the figure to appear at the edge, but there was nothing. Just the shadows, hanging like a vast black curtain. After a few moments, I regained my composure and grabbed my phone. I had to call for help, needed to tell someone what was happening. I quickly dialed Sarah. She answered on the third ring, her voice sleepy and confused. "Hello. Is this you?" "Sarah, it's me. You won't believe what I saw. Mikey's missing, and I just saw what." "Slow down." She interrupted, concern lacing her words. "I think someone's out here. Something's not right. Please, I need your help." Okay. Where are you?" "I'm at the campsite." "Just hurry." As I was talking, I saw movement by the trees again. My heart dropped. The figure was back, watching me from a distance. "Are you there?" Sarah asked, her voice pulling me from my trance. "I'm here," I whispered, keeping my eyes glued to the dark. "But I don't think I should stay. It's not safe." Before I could say anything else, a loud bang rattled my car. I jolted, dropping my phone. I peeked out the window to see what it was. The figure was closer now, and I could make out the details of its face, a mix of shadows and features I couldn't identify. It looked familiar. My breath quickened as a flood of dread rushed over me. Then it moved again, faster this time. I scrambled for the keys, trying to turn the ignition, but it felt like everything was happening in slow motion. The figure was almost at my window now, reaching out a hand. That's when the realization hit me. The knife. I remembered where I'd seen that face before. But before I could grasp the thought, the world outside my car went dark. Everything was suddenly silent. "Sarah!" I shouted, panic rising in my throat. Then, everything went cold, and I felt something slide across the roof of my car. I reached for the door handle, but my fingers trembled too much. "Get away from her!" A voice cried out. It wasn't mine. I turned to see a flashlight beam cutting through the dark, illuminating the figure's face. But in the light, everything was distorted. The person wasn't just anyone, it was Mike, his eyes wild with terror. But wait, a glimpse of shadow was still at the edge of the beam. My heart sank further. "Mike?" I called, knowing all too well that there were more pieces to this puzzle than I understood. "Mike, is that really you?" I yelled, anxiety twisting my stomach. His flashlight flickered, as if the batteries were about to die. I could barely see his features, but the fear etched across his face was unmistakable. He stepped closer, the beam of light revealing his disheveled hair and the dirt smeared across his cheeks. "Get out of the car!" he shouted, his voice a mix of urgency and panic. No. There's something out there. I glanced toward the trees, half expecting the figure to re-emerge from the shadows. The moment hung between us. He hesitated, as if the weight of my words was settling in. I know. You just have to trust me, he replied, his voice steadier now. I saw it. I saw what took you. What? Took me? What are you saying? I asked, confusion crashing over me like a wave, but before he could answer, there was another loud bang, this one louder and closer. The exterior of my car shuddered, and I felt a cold sweat break out on my skin. Please. Just get in the back seat or something. He urged that I glanced once more at the trees. The figure was no longer a distant shadow, it was here, somewhere close. My instincts screamed at me to drive away, to get to safety, but the fear in Mike's eyes kept me still. Moving slowly, I shifted to the back seat, watching Mike through the window. He seemed to weigh his options, then opened the driver's side door and jumped in. The flashlight beam flickered wildly around us, illuminating the campsite just enough for me to see the overturned cooler and scattered gear. What are we doing? I whispered, trying to keep my voice steady. We need to get out of here. Now. He replied, breathing heavily. Just then, I saw a definitive movement against the trunk of a nearby tree. The figure vanished, and in its place, another shadow emerged. This one was larger, menacing, and it moved with unfathomable speed. Start the car. Mike shouted, and I fumbled for the keys, my hands shaking. The engine roared to life, but I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. What do you know? I demanded, glancing at him as I shifted into reverse. What did you see? I saw it coming for you, he stammered, his eyes wide. I tried to find you, but the path was full of what? I pressed, urgency overtaking my fear. I shifted into drive, ready to pull away. And I realized, he said, his voice barely above a whisper, it's not just about you. It's been watching me too. I can feel it. My heart sank. What do you mean? Combining fear and frustration, I slammed the gas pedal, sending the car careening down the dirt path. We jolted in our seats, scraping through branches that snagged the windows. I couldn't look back, I had to keep going. That's when I noticed it. On the road ahead, small figures, swarming like insects, shadows dancing under the moonlight. I swerved, panic surging again. What are those? I don't know, Mike shouted, gripping the dashboard. But we have to keep moving. I stepped on the accelerator, the car tearing through the darkness. Yet, the shadows kept appearing, expanding in number and size. Just when I'd thought we had escaped the danger, the weight of it all crashed down harder than ever, only then did I realize what I had become part of. The truth loomed just out of reach, and I had no idea if escaping would lead to answers or more terror. I pushed forward, the weight of uncertainty heavy in the air. The road ahead looked endless, each shadow a reminder of the nightmare closing in around us. The car skidded around a corner, and I barely managed to keep it on the road. The shadows flitted past, joining the chaos outside. Each figure seemed to pulse with an unnatural energy, darting into the trees before disappearing entirely. My heart raced as I focused on the path ahead. What are they? I yelled, desperation creeping into my voice. I don't know. Mike replied, his expression a mixture of determination and dread. Just keep driving. Don't stop. I wasn't sure how much longer I could maintain this speed. The dirt road twisted and turned, and every bump jolted us in our seats. I glanced over at Mike. He was scanning the forest with a frantic look. We can't let them catch us, he said, tightening his grip on the dashboard. Catch us? Who? Just then, a loud crack echoed from the trees. My stomach dropped. It sounded closer, like it was right behind us. I fought the urge to look in the rearview mirror. Instead, I pressed the accelerator harder and felt the engine's roar surge beneath me. Suddenly, one of the shadows lunged onto the road in front of us. I slammed the brakes, the tires screeching against the gravel. The car jerked forward, narrowly avoiding the figure, which vanished as quickly as it appeared. "Did you see that?" I shouted, my voice trembling. "Yeah. We can't stop." He was nearly shouting now, his eyes wide with fear. "There's no time." I took a deep breath and put the car back in gear. I knew we had to keep moving, but where to? Ahead, the road was barely illuminated by the dying beam of Mike's flashlight, revealing more disturbances in the underbrush. The shadows were multiplying, closing in. "Look!" He pointed. I followed his gaze to something on the side of the road glimmers in the darkness. "Stop! Are you crazy? Just trust me. We can't go any further. We have to get out." I hesitated, but the panic in his voice broke through my fear. I pulled over, the engine rumbling to a stop. "What now?" "We need to find somewhere safe, something we can defend," he said, flinging open the door. "Are you sure?" The thought of leaving my car, our only shelter, sent chills down my spine. "Now!" Mike insisted, urgency coursing through him. Reluctantly, I climbed out, my feet meeting the cold ground. We were crouched behind the car, peering into the dimly lit woods. The shadows hovered just out of sight, their whispers faint but unsettling. "What is this?" I murmured. The glimmers on the ground started to take shape, illuminating a path of small stones arranged in a wide spiral leading back into the woods. "Do you see that?" Mike asked, entranced. "Yes, but what is it?" "I don't know, but it might lead us to something." His face was set in determination. With one last glance back at the shadows, I took a deep breath. I could hear something shifting in the darkness, something not far from us. "Let us go," I said, cautiously stepping closer to the spiral. As we walked into the woods, my heart raced not just with fear but with a strange mix of curiosity. That's when I noticed the air growing colder. The shadows seemed to stretch and pulse with a life of their own, creating a rhythm, almost a call. "Wait," I whispered, the hair on my arms prickling. Something moved again, crouching low to the ground, just beyond the edge of the spiral. It was watching us. And in that moment, I felt the first surge of real fear. "Mike," I started to say, but he was already moving forward, deeper into the shadows, drawn in by the strange patterns on the ground. Then everything went dark. I don't know how long I was unconscious, but when I opened my eyes, darkness enveloped me like a heavy blanket. I panicked, unable to sit up at first. My heart pounded in my chest as I struggled to recall what had happened. The last thing I remembered was the spiral, the shadows creeping closer. That I blinked rapidly, trying to adjust to the lack of light. As my vision cleared, I realized I was lying on the ground, the cool earth beneath me. My breath quickened. Where was Mike? The shadows? Had I imagined it all? "Mike!" I called out, but my voice was swallowed by silence. I pushed myself up, feeling a tremor in my limbs. I looked around, seeing only vague outlines of trees surrounding me. The spiral was gone. That I fumbled for my phone, my fingers trembling. The flashlight flickered on, casting a beam of light into the darkness. Trees closed in around me, their branches like twisted fingers reaching out. I turned, frantic, searching for any sign of Mike. "Mike!" I shouted again, a knot tightening in my stomach. Just then, I heard something, a rustling from behind a nearby tree. I trained the flashlight in that direction, and in the glow, I saw it. A figure crouched low, its face obscured by shadows. My breath caught in my throat. "Is that you?" I asked, cautious. It didn't respond. Instead, it tilted its head, almost inquisitive. I could see the outline of small antlers peeking from behind the trunk. Panic surged as I recognized what I was looking at, a creature, not quite human, but not entirely animal either. It looked grotesque yet strangely captivating in the light of my phone. "Stay back!" I warned, retreating a step. That's when I noticed the ground littered with small trinkets, bits of broken glass, shattered toys, and even something that looked like a shriveled hand. The hand unnerved me the most. I felt bile rise in my throat that I backed away slowly, my pulse racing. "Mike!" I called again, desperately. Before I could think, the figure stepped out from behind the tree, revealing itself fully. My heart dropped. It was mostly human but with elongated limbs and skin that seemed to shimmer faintly in the dark. Its eyes glowed with a strange light, bright and penetrating. Then I heard a voice, not from the creature but from the shadows all around me, singing. It was a haunting melody that made my head spin. The more I listened, the weaker I felt, as if the song were seeping into my bones. "Mike!" I yelled again, trying to pull my thoughts together. The creature lunged forward, and instinct took over. I turned and ran without thinking. The sound of my beating heart thundered in my ears, drowning out the echo of that terrible song. I ducked beneath branches, ran through thick bushes, and kept my flashlight focused forward, and then, just as I thought I'd evaded whatever was pursuing me, I tripped over an unseen root and fell hard to the ground. The flashlight skittered away, leaving me plunged into darkness once more. I scrambled to my feet, gasping. Breathless and panicked, I strained to hear any sign of Mike or the strange creature. The darkness felt alive, pressing against me, wrapping me in cold tendrils. That's when I saw it again, the glow, piercing through the suffocating blackness. I couldn't tell if it was the creature or something worse waiting for me in the shadows. My instincts screamed at me to run again, but my legs felt like lead. I had to find Mike before whatever lurked in this forest found us both. I couldn't stand still. Every moment spent in this oppressive darkness heightened my fear. I took a deep breath and tried to calm myself. Fumbling around in the dense underbrush, I managed to locate my flashlight, but the beam flickered and dimmed. I needed to find Mike. "Mike!" I called again, my voice barely breaking through the weight of the silence. I took a few hesitant steps backward in the direction I thought I'd come from. Maybe if I retraced my steps, I could find him. That was when I heard a soft whimpering sound. My heart soared at the thought that it could be Mike, but the sound sent chills down my spine. It was different from anything I'd ever heard before, like a strangled cry mixed with something more primal. "Mike?" I said, inching toward the noise. I felt the beam of my flashlight die suddenly, plunging me back into darkness. I flicked the switch repeatedly, but it refused to work. Panic clawed its way back into my throat. Just then, I spotted a faint glow through the trees again. It was not the same sickly light I'd seen earlier, but softer, more inviting. I felt pulled toward it, almost against my will. I hesitated. Should I follow it, or should I keep searching blindly for Mike? "Stay focused," I whispered to myself. "Follow the sound." I crept closer to the source of the whimpering, my heart racing in anticipation and dread. Each step felt like wading through thick mud, and as I approached, the cries grew louder. They were coming from behind a large, gnarled tree. I peered around it cautiously. What I saw made my stomach drop. It wasn't Mike. Instead, there was a small figure curled up on the forest floor, as if trying to shield itself from the world. Their hair was tangled and wild, and their clothes were torn and muddy. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice trembling. The figure looked up, and I recoiled as another flash of light cast the contours of its face against the backdrop of the trees. Its eyes shimmered with the same eerie glow as the creature from before, its skin stretched tightly over bony features. "Help me," it rasped, its voice a croaky whisper, sending chills down my spine. Suddenly, the shadows around us deepened, and the singing returned, echoing eerily through the underbrush. I looked back at the glowing figure, unsure what to do. I opened my mouth to say something, but words failed me. The ground beneath us began to tremble, and the trees went still, as if the whole forest had come alive. I stumbled backward, grabbing at the bark of the tree for support. "Please, you need to get me out of here," the figure urged, its eyes wide and frantic. Before I could respond, a low growl resonated from deep within the woods. My instincts flared, pushing me into survival mode. I had to make a choice now, either help the creature, or abandon it to save myself. But then a thought struck me: if it was still out here, maybe Mike was too. I needed to push forward, but I had to stay smart about it. Stay here. I'll be right back. I shouted and dashed away, praying that I could still reach Mike in time. As I ran, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wicked watched me from the shadows, waiting for my next move. I turned back only once, just to see the creature still crouched by the tree, its eyes glowing like twin lanterns in the darkness. That's when I felt a cold breath against my neck. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. The cold air wrapped around me like a clammy hand, and instinctively, I turned to face whatever lurked behind me. Nothing. Just the trees and the void of night. Had I imagined it? I took a step forward, continuing my desperate search for Mike, but my heart pounded, heavy with dread. As I moved deeper into the forest, the sound of soft footsteps echoed around me. I glanced over my shoulder, but again, I found nothing. Panic crept into my mind, tangling with the uncertainty of who or what I might encounter. Mike! I called out, my voice trembling. Then, without warning, the ground shifted beneath me, and I stumbled into a small clearing. I caught my breath and scanned the area. At first, it seemed vacant, but then I noticed something in the center. It was a pile of tattered clothing, Mike's clothes. A surge of hope rushed through me, mingled with unease. Mike? I knelt next to the pile, and just as I did, a low growl resonated once more from the shadows. The air thickened with a musty scent, and I felt eyes on me, watching my every move. I scrambled to my feet, heart racing. This is not good, I muttered to myself. I felt trapped, like prey cornered by a predator. I scanned the edges of the clearing, desperately seeking an avenue of escape. That's when I heard the crunching of leaves, the distinct sound of something heavy moving through the underbrush. Mike! I shouted again, my voice echoing eerily. Nothing. A new growl broke through the silence, deeper this time, and I could feel the vibrations in my chest. I had to move. I bolted in the opposite direction of the sounds, dodging branches and roots as they lashed out, trying to slow me down. Vines tangled at my ankles, threatening to trip me as I fought against the encroaching darkness. My mind raced with thoughts. What was hunting me? Where was Mike? Suddenly, the ground opened up before me, revealing a steep slope littered with rocks and soil. I had no choice. I leapt down, rolling to absorb the impact. As I landed, a sharp pain shot through my ankle, but I didn't stop. I could hear the growls getting closer, clutching my injured ankle. Fear gripped me. I knew I couldn't run forever. I needed a plan. As I staggered forward, I spotted a shape moving up ahead, cloaked in shadow. Before I could fully process it, a flicker of the same soft glow I had seen before illuminated the figure. Mike? I called out, my voice hanging in the air. The figure turned slowly. It wasn't Mike. The creature stood tall, its eyes shimmering like moonlight, its form shifting in and out of focus. My heart sank as dread washed over me. This was no innocent being. Not safe here, it whispered, its voice a chilling melody. Follow me if you want to live. I hesitated, torn between the danger lurking behind and the uncertainty of following this new entity. But the growl behind me roared louder, snapping me out of my trance. I took a deep breath, adrenaline surging through me. Lead the way, I said, surrendering to whatever fate was waiting in the dark. As I followed, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were racing against something more than just time. We were being hunted. The luminescent creature led me deeper into the woods, weaving through the trees with an agility that seemed unnatural. I stumbled behind it, still grappling with the panic clawing at my chest. Glancing behind me, the growls of whatever hunted me echoed through the darkness, each reverberation amplifying my dread. I couldn't shake the image of Mike's clothes, and a part of me screamed to turn back, to search for him, but I pressed on, my instincts urging survival above all else. The creature moved effortlessly, its presence almost hypnotic, guiding me through twisting paths and thick brush, until the sounds of pursuit faded into an unsettling quiet. Eventually, we came to a clearing, a vast, circular space under a canopy of stars that flickered like distant eyes. The air felt thinner here, charged with a surreal energy that buzzed against my skin. I could see the creature clearly now, its elongated limbs shimmered faintly, casting ghostly reflections against the surrounding foliage. "What are you?" I whispered, feeling the weight of desperation and uncertainty. It turned to me, tilting its head in a way that felt almost human, but its eyes glimmered with an eerie intensity. "You trespassed," it said, words flowing like a whispering wind. "But I can help you." "Where's Mike?" I pressed, heart racing. "Is he safe?" The creature's luminescence flickered, and I could see a shadow shifting in the trees at the edge of the clearing. "To save him, you must face what you fear. It cannot be avoided." The air shifted, and unease tinged my skin. Before I could respond, shadows loomed at the edge of the clearing, swarming together to form darker shapes. My breath caught, they pulsed with an almost sentient energy, twisting and bending around each other. I felt the ground rumble beneath my feet, as if the earth itself were aware of the encroaching menace. "Run!" I shouted to the creature, panic seizing my heart as I turned back toward the trees. But it reached out, its elongated hand parting the shadows as if they were mere smoke. "You cannot escape. You must confront it." With those words, a light surged through the trees, illuminating the darkness around me. The shadows recoiled, revealing their true forms, figures twisted in agony, their eyes filled with unspeakable grief. I staggered back, realizing that they were not mindless predators but lost souls, trapped within that forest, forever bound to the darkness. "Mike," I breathed, the weight of my friend's absence enveloping me. "Is he one of them?" "Your friend is deep within. To find him, you must acknowledge what you've brought with you," the creature advised, nodding toward the forming shadows. "Fear feeds them." I hesitated, uncertainty clawing at my throat. Could it be true? Was it my own dread that had manifested these terrors? I remembered the laughter from those days at the campsite, the joy that seemed so distant now. Another growl broke the stillness, and I could feel the pulsing energies preparing to attack. "No. I won't let you take him," I yelled, stepping forward. Perhaps the only way to break free was to confront my own fears, to embrace the reality of what I had experienced. "Mike!" I shouted again, purpose swelling within me. "If you can hear me, I promise I won't leave you behind." The shadows encroached, but instead of running, I faced them, recalling my memories of joy and fellowship. "Your existence doesn't control me. I am stronger than this fear," I declared, forcing the words out, even as the air around me thickened. Suddenly, I felt the ground quake and the shadows shrank back, whispered fears diminishing. In that moment of defiance, a faint voice broke through the clamor. "I'm here." It was Mike, strained but clear. "Fight!" I cried, emboldened by his presence. "We can break this together." The creature stood beside me, its glow shining brighter, illuminating a path through the darkness. Shadows writhed, fear and confusion spilling from them as I called out, "We are more than this." As we faced the dark together, something shifted in the air. I felt a warmth, a lightness enveloping us, pushing the shadows back. They recoiled and faded, revealing a figure, a disheveled Mike, appearing as if pulled from the depths of the abyss. "Is that really you?" I gasped, my heart surging at the sight of him. "I thought I'd lost you," he panted, clutching my arm. The creature nodded, and I sensed its acknowledgement of our bond, pulsing rhythmically with the shadows retreating. But I realized something in that moment: there would always be shadows, lurking and waiting. Some part of that darkness would never truly fade from our lives. As dawn began to break, the forest around us softened, shadows dissolving into the dawn light. We stumbled out of the clearing, hand in hand, feeling the presence of the creature trailing us like a guardian. Will we be free? I whispered, half fearful, half hopeful. None of us could answer. As we stumbled back toward the path that would lead us home, uncertainty lingered in the corners of my mind. But I knew that this fight was just the beginning of something larger, something that would shadow us, no matter how far we traveled. Sometimes, fears reside below the surface, waiting for the right moment to emerge. I could still hear that faint whisper of laughter in the trees as we left, but I no longer felt bound to that sound. I still think about what lurks within shadows. I guess I always will.